Japan is running out of people. It will get worse, and we are next. Last week, Japan's government announced the country lost 861,000 people last year as the country's fertility rate, which is the average number of babies a woman is expected to have over a lifetime, fell to a record low of 1.2. For perspective, if you start with 100 million people and have 1.2 babies each, after 3 generations, you are down to just 20 million people. Related, over 65s now account for 30% of Japan's population, while a new study finds there are 9 million vacant houses in Japan, which is about 1 in 6 houses in Japan that are vacant and falling down. What's driving it? As always, government. Namely, we're running out of kids because slow growth and inflation force two-income families, while mandatory government pensions remove the main historical incentive to have kids to support you in old age. So if you're struggling to make ends meet as it is, and if you don't need kids when you're old, you will delay or skip them altogether. And that is exactly what happened in Japan. In the 1950s, Japanese women had, on average, 3.5 children. In 1961, universal pensions were introduced, and the birth rate and marriage rate started dropping. Then came the 1970s inflation, which took the percent of young Japanese women working from 46% in 1969 to 83%. The finishing blow is the lost decade stagnation, which forced even married women to work to make ends meet. So the percent of married Japanese women aged 25 to 29, those are prime childbearing ages, went from 50% in 2006 to 80% working today. In fact, today in Japan, there are more young women working than young men working. The government's response has been to rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic with one-time cash bounties or the left's favorite subsidized childcare, or, of course, importing new people. None, sadly, work. Immigrants bring their own labor shortage with them. They go out to eat, they get their teeth cleaned, they stand in line at the doctor. Otherwise, we could just annex Canada and have millions of spare workers. Meanwhile, many European countries have tried both cash for babies and free childcare, and it doesn't work. Scandinavia, for example, has universal childcare, and the result is fertility rates of 1.5 in Sweden and Denmark, 1.4 in Norway, and 1.3 in Finland. So no, it's not a lack of government spending, it is the government spending itself, which drives inflation and stagnant incomes to where there is no financial cushion to start a family. Meanwhile, government pensions reward doing the bare minimum by equalizing payments and disincentivizing hard work. I'd guess with an assist from public education that, at least in the West, turns child against parent, leaving mom and dad to wonder why they sacrifice so hard to raise people who despise them. So what's next? Brought to you by Unchained.com. Unfortunately, there is no public policy cavalry coming. While voters might vaguely wish there were more babies in the world, that's up against trillions of crony dollars driving the inflation stagnation juggernaut. Fortunately, on a personal level, you don't need a bureaucrat's permission. In a dynamic economy, research actually says men make more once they have kids. You work harder. This is called the fatherhood wage premium, and studies find it essentially covers the extra costs. So while the developed world turns out the lights, it is your kids who will inherit the earth. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.